Someone once asked a monk why he decided to become a monk, and the monk said something unexpected. He said, "I didn't decide. I got stuck." At the time, he was a student. It was exam season. His days were packed, his head was loud. One evening, he stopped by a small temple near his school. Nothing dramatic. He lit incense and prayed quietly, just hoping things would go smoothly. As he was leaving, the monk called out to him, "Come here." The student froze. That monk was known for talking for hours, 4 hours, 5 hours, and he had an exam the next morning. So he said, politely but urgently, "I'm busy today." The monk didn't argue. He just asked, "Where did you come from?" "From the library." "And before that?" "From home." "And before that?" "From my mother's womb." "And before that?" "I don't know." And the monk raised his voice and said, "You don't even know where you came from or where you're going. So why are you so busy?" That question followed him for the rest of his life. Not because it was clever, but because it exposed something most of us spend years avoiding. If you're in your 50s, 60s, or 70s, you probably recognize that feeling. We stayed busy for decades, not always because we were clear, but because stopping felt more dangerous than continuing. This story comes from talks by Venerable Pomnyun, who has spent much of his life sitting with ordinary people and listening, not to their accomplishments, but to their quiet confusion. One thing he returns to again and again is this: some questions don't need answers. They need a softer grip. When someone is worn down, it's rarely because they don't know enough. It's because they're holding life like it's a test they're about to fail. There was a man who once told him about his life. Years of studying abroad, years of working in high-pressure environments, always competing, always pushing. Eventually, his body rebelled. Stimulants to stay awake, sleeping pills to shut down. And then he said something that sounded almost ashamed. "I can't find the place where what I like, what I'm good at, and what's meaningful all line up." Then he asked, quietly, "Is there such a thing as a calling?" The monk answered without hesitation, "There is no calling waiting for you. You make it. There is no hidden path you failed to discover. No original version of your life you somehow ruined. Meaning isn't something you uncover. It's something you assign. And when the meaning you chose starts to suffocate you, you're allowed to loosen it. That isn't quitting. That's awareness." The man asked another question. He said, "I do one thing I'm good at, but I don't love it. And there's something else I love, but I don't know if it can support me. Do I have to choose?" The monk didn't treat it like a fork in the road. He spoke about balance. A person has to stand on their own feet first. That's not ambition. That's stability. So you keep the thing you're good at, because life needs steadiness, and you let the thing you love exist without demanding it carry your survival. If it grows into income later, fine. If it stays something quiet that keeps you human, that's also fine. Not everything you love needs to justify itself by paying the bills. Some things are meant to keep you from hardening. Another person admitted something very honest. "When people around me succeed, I feel jealous. I hate that about myself." The monk didn't correct him. He said jealousy is human. We compare, especially with people close to us. That isn't the problem. The problem is when comparison becomes a place you live. When someone else's success keeps replaying in your head. When it steals your sleep. When it quietly turns into proof that your own life is lacking. At that point, it isn't a moral failure. It's suffering. And he asked a simple question. Why keep doing something that only hurts you? Not because you're bad, but because you deserve better than that. At another talk, someone spoke about feeling crushed by failure, rejections, missed chances, doors that never opened. They said, "It feels like proof that I wasn't good enough." The monk shook his head. "Rejection," he said, "is not an evaluation of your worth. It's information. If you apply somewhere and are turned away, it doesn't mean you're defective. It often just means the target was too high for where you are right now. That's not humiliation. That's data. You adjust. You choose a different door. Or you prepare differently and try again. But when people treat rejection as an identity, they start rejecting themselves, long before the world does. And that quiet self-rejection is far more damaging than any no you receive. He once spoke about running. If you watch someone sprint 100 meters in 10 seconds and decide, without testing yourself, that you should do the same, you set yourself up for lifelong disappointment. But if you run your own race first and discover your time is slower, that isn't shame. It's clarity. You train, you improve a little, and something returns quietly. Confidence. Not the loud kind, the kind that comes from doing what's possible, then doing it again. Self-respect doesn't grow from unrealistic dreams. It grows from achievable ones. Another person talked about how hard it is to let go of judgment, how once they decide someone is wrong, or disappointing, or difficult, the feeling sticks. The monk didn't ask them to be more forgiving. He asked, when you cling to that judgment, who suffers first? Not the other person, you. Judgment becomes heavy when we refuse to put it down, and most people don't change until the weight becomes unbearable. That isn't a flaw. That's how awakening begins. He also spoke about the world we live in now, how competition has become constant, how comparison never turns off, how pressure seeps into everything, work, family, even childhood, and how that pressure doesn't disappear on its own. It gets passed along. Parents unintentionally pass anxiety to children. Children grow up feeling they're always being measured, and even later in life, that inner measuring stick keeps swinging. When people feel unstable or overwhelmed, it isn't always personal weakness. Sometimes it's the cost of living too long under pressure without rest. That's why calm matters. Not achievement, calm. Near the end of one talk, the monk told a small story from childhood. He used to collect marbles. They felt precious, worth fighting over. Today, he doesn't even know where they are. And he said, many things in your life will become marbles. Not because they didn't matter then, but because time changes how tightly they need to be held. That doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you stop clinging. You live fully, but not desperately. And when you gain something, you learn to share it. Because what stays with you isn't the marble. It's who you were while holding it. He said something else, quietly. If your emotions become unmanageable, if your mind won't settle, that isn't weakness. There is a point where willpower isn't enough, and pretending otherwise only delays peace. Getting help isn't failure. It's responsibility, to yourself and to the years you still have ahead. So maybe life isn't asking us to figure everything out. Maybe it's asking us to stop being so busy proving something, when we're not even sure what we're chasing anymore. If something feels heavy right now, maybe that heaviness isn't a problem to solve. Maybe it's an invitation to loosen your grip. Let me ask you something gently. What's one thing you used to hold so tightly that you don't need to anymore? Or something you're beginning to see differently for the first time? If you feel like sharing, leave it in the comments. You're not alone in this. Thanks for sitting with me for a while. I'll see you next time.